Hey everybody, this is John Browne, and we have an amazing guest with us today. Anna Browne is the owner of Anabells Fitness, a premier DC-based training service that specializes in kettlebells. She offers customized training plans for people of all types of backgrounds. Anna holds numerous certifications. She's regularly sought out by the media as a subject matter expert on a variety of fitness-related topics, ranging from strength training to overall wellness. If it's involved in fitness, she's got it covered. Welcome to the show, Anna.
Thank you so much. Thanks, John, for having me.
It's going to be a great show today. And to kind of kick things off, can you share with our listeners your backstory and how and why you got into training?
Yes. I always like to tell people when they ask me that question, I feel like training found me. I didn't really find training. And when I say that, everything that I've done in my career, it really just got placed in my lap, nice and gently to see if I can receive it. So I feel like at the end of the day, with everything that I've gone through, it's really been my calling and I really enjoy it. From a young age, even in high school, I played varsity sports, basketball, ran track, and even in college, I traveled with the women's basketball team to be their athletic director and did all that good stuff for about 3 years. And once I graduated, I went into personal training. And obviously, my undergrad degree was rehabilitation services, health. And I just thought it was such a good addition to what I was already kind of doing. And not to mention, I was actually making more money doing personal training part-time than my career out of college. So that says a lot.
Wow.
And with that, with that is where I found my love for kettlebells. I'm not sure where you guys are at, but there's a chain that used to be around this area. It was called Valley Total Fitness. Mm-hmm. And when that was running, I was training there, and I met a gentleman, and he used to come in the gym and carry a bunch of like kettlebells. But back then I thought, what were those big ball things, right? This was in 2007, 2006, 2007. And he ended up training me 3 times a week, just kind of hit it off. And he asked me one day to come over to his gym to kind of assist him. And I'm like, well, what do you do? And he goes, well, I'm a trainer at a CrossFit gym. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't really know what that was. I just knew I liked kettlebells. I liked where things were going. And so I showed up. And a few months into that, after being crushed for a few months from him doing kettlebell training, dude started me off with a 35-pound bell. And this was a long time ago. I was literally 105 pounds, just to kind of give you some stats, right? And John then actually sponsored me to take my first CrossFit kettlebell certification with Jeff Martone. And that's when I met Jeff Martone was in 2007. And I took my certification with Jeff. Apparently I did great. Jeff picked me up as one of his trainers for Tactical Athlete and for CrossFit Kettlebell. And so for about 5 years, I ended up just assisting Jeff when he would come into the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. And that lasted about 10 years. So Jeff and I were like partners for 10 years, assisting him. I would take over some of the actual CrossFit kettlebell certs on my own with my partner in this area when he couldn't make it. So gained a lot of experience just with working under Jeff. And I also had another mentor on the side. Steve Carter was my mentor. Just being in the industry, him and Ken Blackburn sponsored me to come to one of their IKFF certs. And I went out for the weekend. I think it was in Philly. And I remember Steve called me out. He goes, so Anabelle can flip kettlebells, like juggle. And all they had was like a 40-pound bell or something ridiculous. And this is day 2 of the certification. My grip was crushed. I was like just trying to go home and get out of there. And I remember doing like just swinging, Russian swings, kettlebell catching, and continuous flowing. And I was so exhausted and I could not wait to get out of there. But I really just fell in love with the training, the aspect of it, what it did and how I felt when I was training. And then since then, I kind of just started my own business called Kettlebell Chicks, and primarily aiming more to attract women to as you know, this is a male-driven industry, and a lot of the women, just being a woman myself and looking how I interacted with teaching certifications with Jeff and seeing how I was treated, and seeing how the percentage of females that were attending the courses, it was really non-existent. So I really wanted to kind of veer towards the female aspect of the training and make it more enlightening and pretty and fun and, exciting. So that was my intro to kettlebells.
I love it. And, obviously with kettlebell chicks, kettlebells are the primary method in training people. Why did you choose kettlebells? Because there's a lot of different implements out there. We've got free weights, we've got sandbags, we've got bands, we've got everything under the sun. What is it about kettlebells that you said this is going to give people the fastest transformational change, especially with women? What was it about that just said, just really lit things up for you?
Yeah, I think just personally, it started with myself, right? Like before, I used to compete in the bodybuilding industry, and I placed first and went nationals in the bikini division. And I experienced it and all that. And all that was like just isolating muscles. And so I've been there, done that when it comes to just lifting heavy iron up and shape your physique that you want, right? But when I was introduced to kettlebells, it literally, just looking at it, thinking of what was in front of me and the task that I had to endure, like that is so tough. I can never do that. Or, feeling discouraged and just having the power and the feeling that it comes with when you accomplish a certain move, like a snatch or a Turkish Get Up, and then incrementing the weights as you get stronger. And you see that and you feel that. I feel like that is so powerful, and people aren't talking about that enough. Like what it does to your psyche, what it does to your mental, to your just confidence, right? In general. And I feel like if you feel good in here, then everything else, you're going to feel good out here, right? And I'm all for that. So kettlebells, obviously, in a different toolbox, dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells have their own technique and method, and they're utilized for different things. But kettlebells, as a lot of people know, they're very versatile. You can do them at home. They're very low maintenance. All you need is one bell. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I only have an 8 kilogram. Okay, well, let's incorporate a tougher endurance workout. Let's swing for 5 minutes straight. You don't have to really necessarily go up and weight to get a different workout every time.
And how do you get, we're talking about people entering the first time into your facility. How do you help them to overcome the kind of intimidation that happens with the bell? Because there is something about this chunk of iron, and you start to see people, doing snatches, or like you, if you're doing juggling, it's pretty intimidating for a lot of people in the beginning. How do you help them to overcome that and kind of get to know the kettlebell? Because believe it or not, I still work with people who have never done kettlebells before. Lots of athletes still have never picked one up, or if they're doing it wrong. So, how do you help people,
right,
overcome this intimidation? When they see this big chunk of iron, and like I said, they've seen videos or YouTube clips or see what you can do. How do you get them to overcome maybe the intimidation factor of this hunk of iron?
Yeah, and that's funny that you mentioned that, John, because I love working with people for the first time that have never touched a kettlebell. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. That means they don't have any preconceptive, theories that this is how it should be, and they have a hard time steering away from that. So I love working with the newbies, right? Mm-hmm. This has created my line with my kettlebells and manufacturing. First, intimidation. They're nice and pink. What don't you love about a bright pink kettlebell? Right? So that's step one. Appearance draws people in. So the other thing is really, for me, it's so simple. I think it is about the coaching, the relationship, that how a coach delivers to the student or to the athlete. If he's closed-minded or not able to work around injuries, or knowing that this athlete came in and has maybe different experiences with, CrossFit or Strong First or other things, and then they completely shut that down, then you're not really going to be relatable, right? So being open-minded and working around what they already know. I think with the kettlebell industry, you see this a lot. Everyone's a know-it-all, and there's only one way. There's no one method that works for everybody. And it's weird because we're all built differently, right? And we all learn differently. And so for someone to say, oh, this is a strong first or hard style or CrossFit or whatever, as long as that spectrum, the hip hinge is there, you're not completely locked out at the top, those minimum things that align everyone's movement together, I feel like if we had that approach, things would go a lot smoother. The intimidation theory would be out of existence, and at least it'd be a friendlier experience.
Yeah, and it's funny because there is kind of this magical technique that everybody has. My technique is the right way. I remember when kettlebells were first coming on the scene, John Brookfield was my mentor with kettlebells, and the first things that I learned were the swing snatch. So I'm doing the snatch swing style. And of course, you can't get as many reps that way. But a lot of people say, what are you doing? But I can tell you that even though that would not be, like the speed snatch is today, the fast method of going up that's more like Olympic weightlifting style. And I can tell you that swing snatch built incredible power. And so, this is one of the kind of things I talk with kettlebell people is you really, unless you have bad instruction, can't screw it up because your body will adapt somehow, some way. You'll find your personal groove. And I love to let people know that's one of the cool things that we're talking about here is that people can find the groove that's best for them as long as it's not hurting them, as long as you're not doing something negative to your body, that groove. But yeah, it is. Everybody's got their perfect technique, and my way is the way, and my way is the only way. And it's interesting just to see how the movement has really worked here in the United States. Can you share with us the bespoke approach? Did I pronounce that right? The bespoke approach to working with your clients?
Yeah. My clients come from different walks of life. The majority of clients are female. I feel like now I've reached a position in my career where I solely only want to work with females. I've been there, done that when training men and large groups of football player athletes, and I love it, but I just feel like I'm more relatable. I'm not immediately like my clients don't come in and know that I'm better than you or I know better. They're more open to learning, and I like that style. I like that method. With my experience with women, they're just a lot more teachable. I'm not saying anything about men. This is just what I feel with women. They're a lot more teachable, open-minded, open to feedback, and just in general, easier to work with.
It's very cool. And how does your faith, you're a person of faith, how does your faith impact your business and your life?
A lot. It impacts it in a paramount way because, I really just to be a good person, right? A good person means to me just being ethical, being fair, being honest, being nice. I feel like in the industry, there's a lot of ego connected. It's male driven, and it's like that's not my style. It costs nothing to be nice and fair, and I genuinely love helping people. I genuinely want people to progress and do well because I know what kettlebell training has done for me. It's given me confidence. It's given me the security. It's something that no one can take from me, and I've also had clients say the same thing for themselves. And so for me, that brings me a lot of joy. And that's what I'm realizing as I do get a little bit older and being in the fitness industry for 15 years now, I'm looking for joy. I'm looking for the joy aspect of training, like changing lives. People telling me like, oh my God, I really love this, when like 2 months ago, they could barely do a 10-pound swing, right? So that's what I'm looking for, transformation. And through my faith, I find that I'm able to deliver a lot more joyful experience to my clients.
Awesome. And of course that affects the business side of it too, because you're wanting the best for your people. I love that. So I'm going to ask you an interesting question here. What do you think are the most effective bang for the buck kettlebell exercises? Now, I know if I ask 10 different trainers, I get 10 different answers, but I want to know from you, what you've seen, because you've watched these transformations take place. That's one of the most rewarding things about training with individuals. What are the most effective bang for the buck? So people are listening today say, if I was only going to pick out 3 movements, I'm going to get a kettlebell, I'm going to buy a kettlebell from you, I'm going to do 3 movements, what would those be?
Okay, just one exercise?
No, you can pick as many as you want, but what are the best ones? And I would say let's try 3 or 4. If you had somebody says,
Okay.
give me top 4 and why.
Yes. Yes. So first, I would say the snatch, and this is all dependent on people already knowing how to do these moves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the dead snatch, because it's a very explosive move, you're literally going and retrieving a lot of momentum, a lot of endurance, a lot of strength and power in one motion, right? And it's also a very, very functional movement. You're basically just squatting. But a lot of people these days don't know how to squat, right? We're sitting in our chairs all day, we're rounding our back. So that helps promote good posture. You're in this linear line that you should be in. At the end of the day, it gives you endurance, strength, and stamina. So I love a good power snatch. The snatch is probably one of my favorites ever. The Turkish Get Up, just because it's so fundamental, it's so fun, and it's self-correcting, right? Movement becomes a pattern, and sometimes when we do things that are not normal, we feel that, and we tend to self-correct. So it's easy for reinforcement while you're doing the actual work. You also have like 4 or 5 moves in one actual workout, right? So you start from the floor, and then you end on standing up overhead. So you go from a side rotational crunch, right, to a side plank, to a side lunge, to an overhead lunge, to a stand up, and then you're actually reversing all that. But it takes a lot of focus and core strength, and also mobility, shoulder mobility to finish that move. So a lot of exercise, including a windmill, is also in that, right? So snatch, windmill, I would say a half rotation swing. And that's when you start with one bell swinging, you switch at the top and go back and forth alternating. I say that's good for strength endurance, grip strength, mobility, hand and eye coordination, torso rotation. So you're working the trunk. Really, really, really foundational, superb move. And the last one, I would just say a strict military press, because that's all power, that's all strength. There's no cheating in that. And again, more shoulder rotational in the shoulder joint, more mobility. So I would say those are probably my top 4 exercises with the kettlebell.
Okay, so let's go back for a second to the power snatch. So you're ripping this off the ground, correct?
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. So we're just clarification for people that are listening. So, you have the kettlebell out in front of you. You're going to rip it directly off the ground. What are the rep ranges in that? Do you have people set it down every time? These are some of the key questions. I think when people look at a program, what does the beginning look like? What does the end look like? What is the rep range? Are we talking as many as I can do explosively? When you say these things for the listeners, what would be a good rep range there?
Right. So just to clarify, that's a great question. A dead snatch, anytime you use the term dead, it just means no momentum, no swinging. So you're literally going from the floor straight up with whatever move that you're doing. So a dead snatch is just a snatch starting from the ground up overhead. So I would say 2 things. A dead snatch can be performed with literally going back on the floor and placing your belt on the floor, or a hanging snatch, which is also a dead. So that means you're not touching it on the floor. You're just kind of letting it hang down and then repeating that movement. So I would say when you're working on strength endurance, you probably want to go with the hanging snatch, and then maybe to kind of intro your way into it, maybe a flat dead snatch. So you get maybe a little rest at the bottom, maybe you get a little reset and tweak that form if you need to reset. I would say, knock out 10 solid ones. And then once you're done with that, take your break, of course, and maybe add a little speed to it, or maybe go heavier in weight. But now once you're in there, you've done it, you've got great form, everything is great. Then I would go for time. You can go for alternating, switching left hand to right hand, or go for 1 minute straight on the right side and go for another 1 minute straight on the left side. So it just really, really depends on how you're doing it, and obviously per the athlete's movement patterns.
And then with the Turkish Get Up, let's say somebody can't do a full get up. Can they start with half get ups?
Yeah, I think breaking down the Turkish Get Up is key, right? Knowing all the exercises and all the components that are incorporated in that, and then putting it together. So how I like to teach the Get Up is obviously, an overhead chest, over chest press, laying down, having your setup. Your arm is up right over your chest, saying I'm laying down, and then just go for a press, because you want to be able to stabilize that weight, right? But then you also want to be able to stabilize your weight while you're moving through the entire progression. So breaking it down for a chest press, breaking it up to a sit up to your elbow and then replacing your elbow with your hand and keeping that mobility here, maybe opening that up, maybe also regressing to some arm bars to kind of get that mobility going. Sometimes it's very, very easy to get injured when doing a Turkish get up, especially a get up, because your shoulder joint is really the only thing that has you going, right? So if your bell is not on that joint, right, and if it's a little on your muscle, depending on how tired you are or how heavy or not that weight is, if it goes a little to the left or a little to the right, that's a wrap. That's all she wrote. So really, really important to have that mobility in that shoulder joint. So also practicing a windmill when you're halfway into it, practicing a windmill from going down and up from your transition from the floor up to kneeling lunge. And then just, that's it. I would say those three things: practicing some arm bars, some windmills, and overhead chest press.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's say you've got, Joe Blow comes in, because the way that we are today, we have a lot of tech neck, tech shoulders. People have the rounded shoulders forward, tight pec minor, and all kinds of different things going on. How do you get somebody, specifically people are on their phones so much today, how do you work with them to get enough mobility to do a snatch or to do an overhead press? Because a lot of people, of course, this is one of the reasons I like using kettlebells, because it does pull the arm back a little bit, which makes the press a little bit easier for beginners versus, doing a dumbbell press or something else that kind of forces you to get in position. But how do you get, somebody coming in or somebody listening today that has all these issues? How do you take care of those things before they can get to those type of exercises?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. A lot of people are like on their chairs like this all day, right? Just typing. So they're very, very weak here, overactive. And I would say number one key thing, if someone is just fresh starting off from the ground, joint mobility, right? So every time I create a program or teach my ladies over Zoom now, we're doing joint mobility to start the workout in. So we're doing some crisscrosses, some forward and backs, some circles, some head tilts forward and back here, left and right. We do all of that. But every time we do an actual kettlebell move, like the American swing is such a great exercise for that, for loosening up those shoulders, because if you're swinging overhead, that bell, if you stop here, that bell with the dynamic of that swing, it's going to pull you back a little bit more. So each time you're actively pulling through that stretch and the shoulder mobility. So mobility drills, overhead swings if you can. And really, really, that's it. Just working your way up. It's not really that technical, just getting things that are more of an active stretch, which is what we need. And mobility does go a long way.
Awesome. Can you share with us some of your accomplishments and a little bit about your business?
Yeah. Okay. So some of my accomplishments, I would say, is, working with Jeff Martone for over a decade, assisting him through CrossFit headquarters. I also, John Brookfield, again, is one of my mentors as well. We have him as a friend in common and great guy. Hey, John. And I met John in 2007. So for those of you who do not know John, he is the creator and the founder of the battling rope system. Such an amazing system, such a great guy. And I would often help and assist him when he would come to conventions around the area. And so that was fun. I thought for me, that's like a big privilege. I also worked for Steve Maxwell in Philadelphia at Maxercise way back in the day. So I kind of been around the block, and also now just, these little guys right here. So we just launched our manufacturing kettlebell, I guess, last October. So October 2020, we just launched our kettlebells, and they're steel competition size bells, and really, really proud of them. We have new colors coming up. We have about 4 new colors launching, and I haven't really talked about that yet. But that is coming. And I would say the biggest thing that I'm trying to do that I don't think I have done yet, because we just launched, is I want to change the tone and the spectrum of the fitness industry and make it kind of like a future of fitness type thing. I want to steer away from the stigma that kettlebells has in the industry, with the whole machismo, with the whole hoorah, with the very 0 to 100 style and make them more friendly and acceptable and just accepting. And that's really what I'm here to do. Is I'm trying to just channel it so it can be more inviting to people.
I like that. And let's talk a little bit about your kettlebells for a second. For those who don't know the difference, can you explain the difference between a competition kettlebell versus one that I would pick up at Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods or somewhere else? Can you talk about the handle size? Can you talk about how all the bells are the same size, but they're different weights? I assume that your ones are all the same size, just different weights.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll let you run with that.
Yeah. So these are competition size kettlebells. They're big, as you can see, and they have just a bigger window here, and the handles and the ears are a lot just more pleasing. What you normally see at big box stores are, the cast iron kettlebells. And the difference between that is that the cast iron bells, they're smaller if you have a 5-pounder. And then as you go up in weight of a 5, 10, 15, or 20, they gradually get bigger, just the vision of it, right? So it makes it really, really challenging for people who are doing cleans with a 5-pound bell because it literally just sits right here on that forearm. And there's nothing cute about it. And it's actually very, very painful. With the competition size bells, that all just goes out the window. That's why competition style bells are more preferred over not just athletes, but general population. They can see the big difference. It lands in 3 different places. So it lands right below your forearm, right around this area, and then your bicep shoulder area, which makes it nice and just, it's literally smooth, nice, right? And so that's where I think competitions now are becoming a little bit more popular. And that's why we wanted to, we go through that. And also it's more beneficial when you are training, you're not having to, every time you go up in weight, assess and readjust to, okay, how does this feel? This feels a little bit different. With the weights and the competition style bells, 8 kilogram to a 16 kilogram, they're all going to be the same size or just different in weight. So that's, I think, the biggest difference. Also in the industry, kettlebells are really known for if an 8 kilogram is a light pink and the 12 kilogram is a blue, and then the 16 kilogram is a yellow. That's what I'm changing in the industry. I'm creating fun colors that are away from that spectrum that has been created and built in the industry. And I'm really just trying to veer away from that and do kind of my own thing, fun colors that are more appealing and more fashionable too. A lot of women, social media, they're all about recording videos now and they want to match their outfits. And this is a good complementary tool to match what they're filming and what the workouts look like. So aesthetically, it's a lot easier on the eyes.
Yeah, and again, the grip, everything else. Like in my basement, I've got really light kettlebells all the way up to 145 pounders, and they're old school. Most of them are cast iron, so you can tell once you get up to that 145 pound beast, that thing is huge. It's massive. But there is this tremendous difference in the handles, all these things.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily want to make exercise easier because there is something to be said about grinding through, but I can tell you the difference even in a handle in doing snatches with a traditional kettlebell versus a competition style kettlebell. They're night and day. So it's definitely something, if you're out there and you're going to make the investment, this is definitely something you want to look into for sure.
For sure.
Tell me, what is it like to be a woman in the fitness industry? What's that like? What special challenges are there being a woman in the fitness industry?
It was tough. It still is. I would say not much has changed. The only thing that has changed is that I'm now solely working alone and I have more peace with that. It's just, if I told you stories, you wouldn't believe me because you're like, really? I mean, it was that bad coming in and not even that. We would go into military bases and train, these Marines. And I remember one story. I was working with Jeff and this is back in the day when the good old days, it used to be a 2-day course, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 5. And now I think CrossFit does just a 1-day course. Okay. I had half the room. Jeff had half the room. There were like 50 people in there. And Jeff literally had to sit and look at everyone in between the tests and goes, Anabelle is going to pass or fail you. So you guys need to pay attention because no one was really listening to me. As soon as Jeff spoke, quiet crickets. As soon as I try to explain something, people are talking over me. And so I think he even realized that and had to say something. So you can kind of feel the dynamic and the vibe when it comes to stuff like that. Throughout the years, even personally in the DC area, I'm in DC, I've been overlooked so many times by male trainers that aren't half as qualified as I am. And, they go around and I'm really quiet. I mind my business. I'm very humble, or I try to be, and I stay to myself. So a lot of people, back then didn't know I did what I did. And meantime, I'm teaching weekend certifications like on the daily. And then you have other trainers that have never been certified, but because they're certified, they get called for things or maybe get hired. And so, it was really easy for me just from the beginning of being in the industry, just to work and run my own business, because I saw that as a disadvantage already. And I noticed that. And so even now, I think now finally, after 15 years of being in the industry, I'm known as the kettlebell chick. Like, people don't even really know my name anymore. They just know me as that. And in the DC area, I'm really known for like, okay, she's a kettlebell instructor, probably trained half of DC. So yeah, it's gotten better, but I've definitely had my obstacles. And I think I'm probably at an advantage being a female, to be honest, in the industry, because there aren't a lot of us. And, I just feel like, why not train with a female? I know a lot of people don't want that, but a lot of people also do. So
that's cool. And do you think it's made you a stronger person for, having to overcome these things?
I think before I used to go home and be depressed. Like, I used to really have a hard time with it, if I'm being honest. I would cry a lot. I pray about it a lot, and I've had really, really incredible mentors like Steve and John and Jeff. And you can't even make that up. I mean, I've been really, really blessed to work with, and these guys all took me under their wing. So for me to even have that and have that support, I think that meant a lot. But also now it has made me a stronger person. I'm emotionally stronger. So I know what I know, and I know what I do, and I know I do it well. And so that's all I can really do. I don't really feel like I have to prove myself to people anymore, and my work speaks for itself. And that's really where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about this. So somebody comes in to you and they want to make a transformation. I know that you try to consult the whole person and deal with all of their issues. How important is food prep in success in a fitness program? In other words, somebody's coming in, they're like, man, I want to make major changes. What level of food prep, on the scale of 1 to 10, how important is that for success in a kettlebell program?
10. It's just as important as the kettlebell program. Food is a staple. It is a driving force of how we work during the day, how much energy we have, how much force we can output. If your diet is trash, and if you're eating bonbons and drinking soda all day, and then you go to a gym and try to be productive and progressive with weight or technique, it's just not going to be there. You may be stagnant. But as soon as you change that nutrition and that mindset of fueling your workouts for your actual workout, it's like running, driving a car and driving on empty. It's just not going to work. So you want to really properly fuel your body so you can get the best benefits from when you're doing kettlebell sport or kettlebell training in general. And also it'll help change the physique. So you win. You do nothing but win with that transformation.
Awesome. I love that. And so I want to just, take things down to the most basic level. People are listening to this podcast today. You've seen it all. You've seen, the top athletes. You've seen total beginners. What is one thing that our listeners could start to do today to make an improvement in their fitness? So if there was just one thing, like, hey, if you'll just start with this one thing, it'll make an instant improvement in your life and you can go on from there. What would that be?
Yeah. Okay. Your mindset. I would change your mindset. So especially right now with COVID, a lot of people, even I went through a few things, feeling defeated, unmotivated, helpless, stuck in a rut, whatever that is, shifting the mindset. The mindset is such a powerful muscle and the most underutilized muscle. We gain so much power just from thinking, just from viewing how we think, right? So you can create a negative pathway or a positive pathway. Saying, just changing your mindset one day at a time, whatever that means. Going from negative to positive, whatever that looks like. Not working out to working out, not eating junk to eating clean. Literally, your mindset and your shift will change your entire living, your entire walk through life. It is the most underutilized thing, but mindset and perspective is what does it for me to keep on track. So mindset is it.
I love that. That's fantastic. That's a great answer. So what's next for Anna Browne? Like, you've done all these different things, and you're talking about some key people there. I mean, Jeff Martone, I remember I first met him at the Arnold years ago, and just the things that he could do with a kettlebell amazed me back then, because I was big into heavy pressing at that time, and I'm watching him, fling these little kettlebells flying around everywhere, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Of course, Steve Cotter, everybody that you've mentioned, is amazing. So you've kind of had this amazing pedigree of training with all these different people, from John to Jeff. What's next for you? You're at this level, and you've got these new kettlebells coming out. You got all these things. What's next on the horizon for Anna Browne?
Yes. So this might sound weird, but I really feel like I'm just getting started, right? Being 15 years in, I just feel like I'm just getting my feet wet. With that being said, what's next for me? So what's next for me is to develop a full line of kettlebells. I want to go lighter than the 8 kilograms and go heavier, obviously. I want to make a rainbow of colors that look more appealing and inviting. I want to try to change the perception of training. John and I, we want to collaborate with a kettlebell and battling rope certification. No one's doing that really. And so we want to kind of get our feet wet with the certification. And then of course, COVID hit, so we weren't able to really see each other, but that's really my focus for the next, I would say 6 months, is getting new colors out, launching new colors, new weight, and then collabing with John Brookfield to create a certification.
That's fantastic. And let me ask you this, just because we're talking about kettlebells here. The average person, what weight should they start out with as kettlebells? What kettlebells should they pick out? Because I can tell you what I did. My very first kettlebell was a 70. I had the 32, which is 70 pounds. And before that, I made my own. I'd bought a bunch of plates, and I had a welder make me one, and it was pretty horrific. But I started out. I only had one kettlebell in the beginning, and it was a 70 pounder. So it was very limited in learning a lot of technique. You just had to do it. You had to power through it. And I'm not sure if I were to do it over again today, I would have started out with that weight. But what weight do you think the average person should start out with and then build it from there?
Everyone always says, 8 kilograms is perfect for females to start off with. I really say it's not black and white, right? You can say 8 kilogram, that sounds cute because everyone has been saying it, but everyone is so different. I feel like men should probably start out with an 8 kilogram if you've never touched a kettlebell before. They recommend men start with a 12 kilogram. I'm just saying, I recommend men starting off with an 8 kilogram if they've never touched a kettlebell before, and maybe women a 4 kilogram, really, just to get the movement down. Once you tap into the structure, the form, and the technique, you can do anything. And I remember this was maybe 10 years ago. I was training a high school Division I football team through summer league, and we were doing 2-a-days, and I was in charge of the kettlebell section of it, and no one would listen to me. These are high school football seniors, juniors that were just fooling around and they were hot or whatever. And it wasn't until my partner at the time goes, pick up that kettlebell and start swinging it. And I'm like, well, why? I'm like, that's 50 pounds. And he's like, just swing it. And I'm like, all right, fine, I'm going to do like 5. So I swung the bell 5 times. And next thing you know, 5 minutes later, the kids are like, Miss Annabelle, like raising their hand, all the respect, right? It's not because I'm stronger than them. It's because my technique is dialed down and that allows me to progress and lift whatever I want. It's because I have the foundation. So really, really, if you want to start and really excel in that foundation to be able to progress nicely, start light. Start without a kettlebell. Do the movements without a kettlebell. Then apply the bell to get the form in that mojo going, and then progress from there. It's not all about weight, right? And it can be tailored to anybody. It's not a black and white thing either.
Absolutely. Fantastic stuff. Where can people go to learn more about you? And is there anything else that you want to share? So where do people go to learn more about you, Kettlebell Chicks, the kettlebells, certifications, and anything else that you would like to share?
So first, I need to send you a kettlebell, maybe for your wife too.
Oh, she'd love that.
So yeah, we need to connect after we're done here. We'll get you guys some over. So you can find our lovely kettlebells at www.kettlebellchicks.com. So we sell resistor bands, water bottles, these lovely t-shirts, and our kettlebells, and we will be launching more in a few months. And then also you can find me on Instagram at Kettlebell Chicks. We have a whole bunch of videos there. We're about to start launching just like how-to videos, breakdown of what a what the kettlebell swing looks like, all that good stuff into the new year. And mainly I do Zoom training for people who are out of state, or I have YouTube videos as well. You can go YouTube Kettlebell Chicks, and we have a whole bunch of like 1 hour workouts with a kettlebell, 30-minute workouts. We have a whole bunch of stuff on there. So check us out.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank our guest, Anna Browne, for investing in all of our listeners today. Be sure to check out everything she's told you, and you will never be the same.